this window to recognize what's truly going on in your hearts. It grew from not just me doing it, but to me teaching staff at shelters. So these are not artists in general, they're not therapists, but putting art into their hands as this tool, it became like a key to unlock what needed to be released. Here's participants at a training, and they're doing a workshop called Funeral of I Can't. And as we trained leaders, we encouraged each of them to have Window Between Worlds be a window of time for them to respect their own leadership as well. So over the 20 years, the program's grown to, it's now about 450 different workshops in the curriculum, all created by grassroots leaders on the front line, working with survivors of domestic violence and figuring out what art is going to make that difference. So the Funeral of I Can't, for a survivor leaving domestic violence, you're changing your entire life. And to have an art project where you sit down and you think of what do I feel like I can't do? What do I honestly feel like I can't do? And to express it, and to shred it, and to create a funeral for it. There's a close-up of just one of the pieces. This project has been led now by survivors, by leaders in the shelters all around the country. And here in South Central LA, there's a police department that does our programs. And a survivor participating in their groups had been in a violent relationship for many years, and they were afraid for her safety. She was not ready to get a restraining order. And that's almost the most difficult time and dangerous time for a survivor, when you actually take that step of leaving. Through Funeral of I Can't, she felt ready, and she was so grateful to be ready. And it was that director at that program who, at first when they started at the police station, an art program, he thought, what can cutting and gluing really do? But what he saw is that it enabled an internal change to happen. And until there's that internal change, you cannot force the external changes needed to prevent domestic violence. So the Window Between Worlds now, with about 600 leaders around the country, we have workshops in 200 shelters, and it is it's actually now 65,000 participants a year, and it opens up a window of communication and change and healing. It changes the relationship between moms and their kids. Here's a mom and her son working together. This is a project called Story Trees, where this piece, Two Worlds Collide, was a mother and her daughter working together and speaking for the first time about what they actually felt, about what had gone on. And here, another survivor expressing her longing for her son, who had stayed with her abuser. Here, over the recent years, we've begun to create projects more and more that engage the whole community in the issue of domestic violence, because ending it is not up to survivors, it takes all of us together. So this tree, each square represents one community member's commitment against domestic violence. And this project, some of you have seen just last year at this time, a collaboration with Kim Abelies and 800 survivors of domestic violence that we work with throughout the state of California. And each is a pearl of wisdom on the wall, and expressing the wisdom gained through the difficulty. Here's some close-ups of the pearls. And this is, you can see this on Sunday as part of the tour. It says the Arena 1 Gallery Breaking in Two. A little bit of this show is part of that. Can I just say, our next project we are actually having, and we get to have it at Spark, and I'm so excited to share. And it's based on the Funeral of I Can't project. It's called I Can, Requiem for I Can't.
Okay, so Kathy and Judy, I have one question. In this climate of disregard for nonprofits, Judy's words, discuss your strategies with respect to the empowerment of your organization.
It's interesting that this particular moment that we're experiencing isn't all directly related to funding, but it's also, I think it's related to people's time, the kind of volunteerism that we've depended on, the people, although we have had a real belief that all of the people who work with us in community are paid. They're paid members of teams. So the Great Wall paid for hundreds of youth to be on the project and taught them the skills as workers. And that's a very important aspect of it. So the costs are expensive to work in big scale with large groups. But one of our strategies for survival at the moment is doing work in which we do work for hire. We're using more of a business model, and we are working with people in collaborative methods. Our partnerships have expanded, and we actually do community organizing and create a whole cadre of people who support an individual project. So rather than being sponsored by one group, we have expanded the numbers of people who are working with us. And the second thing is that we always say we are a lean and mean machine. We basically have no fat. We have no, we look to have a very small staff. We've always kept our staff small. We've always done a lot of expansion through asking people to work with us and volunteerism, that people who come into the center. And so people who work in the administrative end of the organization who help us keep the center open on a Saturday, for example, may come in as volunteers. And I think a third strategy really is one in which we have looked to larger numbers of people giving smaller amounts, and figured out how to reduce the cost of everything that we're doing. So part of it is figuring out how to work in scale with less, and the other is how to create business models that work for income, that is an income stream. And selling our prints, for example, you can get online and you can buy prints of all of the works that Spark and myself have done in working in community on various issues. So those are just a few of the strategies, but it is a tough time, and mostly it's the stress that you feel in the people and in the communities.
In this climate, it is incredibly challenging for nonprofits, and that's we work with it's 200 shelters across the country, so we're seeing the impacts on them and their staffing cuts. We, at the same time, domestic violence increases. When there's financial stress in a family, it's 3 times more likelihood of domestic violence. So what we've seen is our numbers have risen dramatically since the economic recession hit. And at the same time, we've had to work that much harder to do that much more. We were afraid that with the staffing cuts, our shelter partners might say they didn't have time to do the art projects. What's happened has been the reverse, and I'm glad to see that. The shelters see how art is at the core of their mission. If they are there to help someone change their lives, if you don't give a person that way to truly connect with what they are feeling and to share it, often for the first time, because domestic violence, you don't feel safe to even notice for yourself what you truly think, what you truly want in your life, and I know that in my life, how hard it is to voice that or even recognize that. So to have art be that window of time where that happens, the shelters see how vital that is and how it opens up that conversation for the women and kids with themselves, with each other, with the staff, to make the changes to save lives. So it's even with the reductions and the leanness of everyone, to see art as part of that engine, that essential engine of change is amazing right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We want to invite everyone to our opening. It is at Spark. It is March 31st. It is the project is led by Barbara T. Smith and Nina Junn in collaboration with the Window Between Worlds, and it will be a ceremony where survivors from around Los Angeles come, and we're actually doing it, the funeral of the ICANS, the celebration of ICANS, we're actually doing it together. So we would love for you to be there. It's a very exciting moment, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, March 31st.
Thank you. Okay, our next pair is Carol Wells and Julie Orser. Carol and Julie have had a very ambitious task of trying to bridge the generations in feminism and talking about feminist imagery. So I'm going to introduce both of them, and they're going to give you an example of the media that they work with, and you'll have a real view of how women represent themselves and are represented. Carol Wells is an activist, art historian, curator, lecturer, and writer. She's been collecting posters and producing political poster art exhibitions on a variety of human rights themes for over 30 years. Trained as a medievalist, she taught the history of art and architecture for 13 years at Cal State Fullerton. In 1988, Carol founded the Center for the Study of Political Graphics, an educational and research archive with more than 80,000 domestic and international human rights and protest posters going back to the 19th century. The majority of the archive dates from the 1960s to the present, and CSPG has the largest collection of post-World War II social movement posters in the United States. Carol's articles on art and politics have appeared in numerous publications and catalogs. CSPG provided posters for 8 Pacific Standard Times exhibitions, including A Decade of Dissent, Democracy in Action 1965 to 1975, currently at the West Hollywood Library. And Julie Orser. Julie was born in Chicago. She received her MFA in studio art from California Institute of the Arts and a BFA in photography at Pacific Northwest College of Art. Her videos, photography, and multi-channel installations have been exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, Changing Roll Gallery in Rome, Steve Turner Contemporary, Los Angeles, Rosamund Felsen Gallery, Los Angeles, Il Magazzino d'Arte Moderna, Rome, Royal College of Art, London, Kunstraum, Innsbruck, Austria, the Gallery Loop, Seoul, Burness Center for Contemporary Arts, Omaha, Santa Barbara Contemporary Arts Forum, the Armory Center for the Arts, Pasadena, Indianapolis Museum of Contemporary Art, Cheekwood Museum of Art in Nashville, Ann Arbor Film Festival, Saison Video, PDX Film Festival, and Dallas Video Festival. Julie was a recipient of the 2010 Fellowship for Emerging Visual Artists from the California Community Foundation and the 2009